Welcome to episode 91 of Coffee with Mirko. It's my pleasure to have you here, and I just want to say thank you for being here. Very grateful, and it's just always mind-boggling to think that we're already on episode 91. Tomorrow we got another great person in coffee, and we're just gonna keep on coming. Today we go all the way to Western Australia with Ziggy, and hello Bianca, hello everybody, Melissa, saludos, Costa Rica, and yeah, we're going all the way to Western Australia with Ziggy, so we'll send him through the invite right away so that he gets it. All right. And yeah, if you're new, well, welcome. This is episode 91, and if you're gonna enjoy this, feel free to take a screenshot later on and share it on your stories. We always like to grow this little community that we are building. And speaking of the devil, Ziggy's in the house, so we'll bring him on. The minute he sends request, here it is. What up?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm good. What's good with you?
Nothing much, mate. You know, just living the dream in Perth. How are you, mate? How's Melbourne going?
Oh, hang on. You fast forward. Must be in connection. I think you asked me how's things in
Whoa.
Melbourne. Yeah, pretty good.
Melbourne.
Just another day in lockdown, as they say, but we're making the most of it.
Far out, man. That's insane.
Yeah, it's okay, man. It's I think very grateful for it. You know, I think granted health and having the basics, I think mental and physical health, and you know, it's okay. Obviously financial as well. There's people with gone through some hardships all over the world, but yeah, I think it was a good. I think this year has been a good, almost like a wake-up call for some, you know, even for myself, and
For a lot of us, for sure.
an interesting hello. Someone knocked at the door, and it's like, oh, you know, start doing an inner journey. So that, yeah. Anyway, but this is about you,
Hello.
Ziggy. Thank you so much for coming on. I actually done some homework. You're second person from WA. I'm sorry. Ben from 5 Senses was, yeah, I forgot. But let's start it off. How are you and your family with this whole situation? And if you can tell us a little bit more about how you started your coffee journey.
Yeah. So, well, first question, I guess. Yeah, family's good, man. I've been sleep, yada yada yada. And sorry, can you hear me?
Now I can. I think it glitched out for a minute, but it's all good.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, and I guess in Perth it's pretty much back to normal. We've had no community transmissions, and kind of like everything's kind of go back to normal except for the hard water, obviously. And you know, like everything's good. Yeah, no complaints. I'm really glad that I'm here. Probably really lucky to be in this side where, you know, there isn't any COVID-19 present, and we're pretty much back to normal. And yeah, how I started my coffee journey, I actually became involved in the coffee journey by accident. So I've been in hospitality all my life. My parents own restaurants, delis, and all that stuff. And I was working as a dishwasher for one of the coffee chains in Perth. And one day, I remember it was a Thursday, one of the baristas called in sick or just didn't rock up, and they chucked me behind the machine, pull shots. And from then on, I kind of fell in love with the process, making coffee, interacting with customers, talking about, you know, their day, or like talking about coffee and stuff like that. And then I was a barista throughout my uni studies. Once I finished my uni studies, I realized that it's not what I want to do. I'm not made for kind of like office work, and I decided to pursue coffee full time. And lo and behold, here I am talking to you, man, and super honored. Thank you so much for having me, man.
No, man, it's my pleasure. I mean, and I guess what, for the sake of the context, what did you study? What were you studying at uni?
I studied electrical engineering. Yeah. Yeah, so I finished that study. Tried getting work and did a bit of that, and then I just didn't really click to me that it wasn't for me. And when you were young, you just didn't know what to do. You just do what your parents tell you.
Yeah, but which is actually interesting. I mean, your parents were in hospitality. Did they encourage you to go and do the studies and sort of, hey, don't
Yeah.
chase gospel? Yeah, okay, that's interesting. And was it difficult for you to navigate that process to say, hey, well, you know what? I love you, but I don't love electric engineering. I'm going to go
Yeah.
into coffee.
So funny thing is look, they've been supportive of my life, and I think they did support me throughout my engineering studies. And when I decided to do that, it was they were a little bit sad about it, but luckily they were overseas, so I told them through Skype that I didn't want to be an engineer anymore. So, so I told them, and I kind of hung up on them just because I was terrified. But over time, they kind of accepted it, and then obviously with the development, with the competitions and all that kind of stuff, they kind of see the value in having that, in being in coffee industry, and being acknowledged for your work, and they kind of realized that I happen to be pretty good at it. And so right now we're all happy, we're all good. So but in the beginning it was literally, I called the mom and go, "Mom, I'm not an engineer anymore." Hang up and just and just left it like that for a little while. Yeah, so it's fun times.
Yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, it's interesting. I think it's such a deep, big social, uh, intricate, what's the word, topic, because I think a lot of people, they just have this designed life by parents, society, friends, whoever it is. Culture is a big one too, depending on which side of the world you're born. But then there's a lot of people who just develop a strong hate towards what they're doing or studying, that then usually results into a big resentment towards the people that push them in that direction. And I think it takes big balls to sort of say, well, you know what, I'd rather be happy than a fat check that I might get in a different profession. And you sort of did that, which is super admirable.
Yeah, big pay cut, I'll tell you that. That's yeah, definitely. And it's a second generation Australian story. I'm not quite sure if your parents immigrated here, or you immigrated yourself to Australia, and kind of like where they want you to be in that kind of position where you're engineering, doctors or lawyers or whatever the case may be, because they had to work hard, obviously, in hospitality business, long days, long nights, and they don't want you to be in that position, but you kind of grow up with it and you kind of love the idea of it, and you decided to pursue it. And it's a story that's like, obviously very intricate, as you said, very complicated. But just for myself, I always think about it like, if I was in my deathbed, do I want to think of, hey, I did what my parents told me and I wasn't happy while I was doing it, and I live a lifestyle that I didn't want to live, or I took a chance, I took the dive, and then I was happy throughout my life, and whatever the case may be.
Yeah, and I think well, to answer your question, I came to Australia 9 years ago, so by myself. So obviously, my parents still back home, and you touch base on being second generation. Of course, your family, with all respect, obviously they have the struggles, the hardships, the hard work to stay here. So they ultimately they want the best for you. So everybody comes from a good place.
Of course.
I think sometimes we feel forced, sometimes we feel guilt in, you feel You would feel, well,
Yeah.
they've done the sacrifices, therefore I should be pursuing to become a lawyer, the doctor, the engineer, you know,
That's right.
the famous ones. But like yourself, I think that's the right mindset. Given money structure, you know, we're not saying go out there and live under a bridge. Obviously, there's a component that money has an importance in society.
Yeah.
And I think the question that the Amina has just dropped is a perfect question for us to sort of unpack, because that what we're trying to do here, I suppose, is hey, if coffee is your passion or whatever passion you got, you can pursue it if that's your call, if that's where the magnet is going towards. And
Yeah.
Amina just asked, I want to become a barista, where do I start? Both.
Very good question. I would suggest that you begin by learning as much as you can about coffee. If that means, you know, reading books, and there's a lot of great books out there. Going to cafes, I think it's a fantastic way to learn to begin with. Just learning about, you know, the cafe and how it works, and ask questions. If you find a good cafe with good coffee, and learn about tasting coffee, what does it taste like, learn about origins. Just get as much knowledge as possible. And the great thing about hospitality, I think it's still somewhat meritocracy, where you can start from the bottom and move your way up. And when people ask me, and I get these questions asked to me all the time, is you can't be a barista straight away, unfortunately. No matter certificates or courses that you do, it's not going to hold candle to the experience that you have. So you go to a cafe, like myself, you know, start as a dishwasher, start as a runner or a front of house. But the key is you have to tell the owners or your employer that this is what I want. I am striving to become a barista, and if I get the opportunity to be behind the machine or learn from the guys behind the machines, I would like that. And commit to it. You know, don't just say it and not do it. And you know, and sometimes you do have to be a little bit pushy, but if you have a good attitude, and that is paramount to everything, then you're well on your way. But you have to do your hard yards first. It looks glamorous being a barista, but you have to know, you have to have the experience, your customer service skills, your hospitality skills has to be first and foremost on top of that, before you get into the nitty-gritty of making coffee and learning about coffee. But if get as much knowledge as possible, books, visit cafes, visit events when, you know, hopefully the pandemic passes by. Just do as much as you can coffee related, and then try to apply for a job where it's just entry level, and then you move on from there and make your demands, I guess, like to be a barista, known to the start, and then be a little bit pushy about that, I think.
Yeah, I second that. If I can add my 2 cents, I think the first thing, grab a piece of paper and answer the question why. Why do you want to get into coffee? Why do you want to become a barista? I think that also will start helping to channel your choice. If it's money, then you might gonna have to start choosing something else. If the answer to why is because I want to start roasting, because I'm passionate, yeah, everything that you said. Obviously, I think there is so much good content out there for free. YouTube videos, podcasts, people literally that you can just reach out on a DM on Instagram. And I think visiting coffee shops is a big one. Just have a good point of view so you can see the barista. And yeah, like it or not, we gotta all start from washing dishes, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
that's the same any jobs. Even if you're studying law and you become a lawyer, you start right from the bottom, processing and working out the admin stuff. So it is what it is. And I suppose. So that's where, okay, you drop engineering, became a barista full-time within the process. When did you sort of go, fuck it, I'm just going to start competing? And why did you start competing?
Yeah, so one of my colleagues suggested to me, because at the point I was a I guess an operations manager and a barista at the same time for this little hole in the wall shop, and I was kind of talking to her about where can I take this coffee, and they told me just compete. So I just thought about it, and I didn't think too much about it, and I just decided to, you know what, I'm gonna do a cup tasting competition because it's easy. You know, quote unquote easy, and it's not at all. I am I'm misinformed in regards to cup tasters. Very, very difficult thing to do. And then had a chat with a few of my mates, barista mates, and one of them just suggested, hey, why don't you try barista championship? I think, you know, you have the skills and I guess the capabilities of doing that. And I was like, yeah, stuff it, let's go. I just didn't know any better. I didn't know the rules. I didn't know the competition formats. I didn't know anything. It just sounded like that's something that could push me to become a better barista. So my intent was, how can I be better at my craft, at my job, through the competitions? And from then on, it's kind of snowballed from there. I became kind of, you know, pretty obsessive about it, and you know, I was lucky enough to place twice, which is really, really good.
Yeah, and I think, did you sort of enjoy the process as well behind competition? It's something that I always ask people competing, because everybody seems to enjoy the process of the before the competition, you know, the training part.
Also the process of practicing and getting to that.
Yeah.
100%. For one, you get to taste the best coffee in the world, essentially, the competition grade coffee. And that's obviously a great one, but moreover, it's you get to kind of look at yourself in a different perspective as a competitor, as a person that's going to be on stage, and you realize you have a lot of flaws in your things, you know, things like your technique, your cleanliness. And a lot of people, and obviously you've spoken to incredible baristas and champions all over the world, and I can vouch for them that it is the process that becomes kind of like the most interesting part. In the end, it becomes sort of like what culminates to this just 15 minutes, but behind it is this relentless need to kind of like be good for yourself, I think.
Yeah. And look,
Yeah,
Bianca just dropped a question, and just to give some context, Bianca is a super young barista, roaster, true coffee lover from Indonesia. Like
just all around. Hello, Bianca. Are you Indonesian?
yeah,
Selamat siang.
there we go. And she's asking.
Yeah, I'm Indonesian as well, so that's great.
We're linking here. And she's asking, how does it feel to compete? Her end goal is eventually to start competing when she reached the legal age to compete. So yeah,
of course.
What's your word of advice?
I love competing. I love being on stage. As you can probably tell, I really like talking. So that's an extra. I mean, if you're very outgoing, you're very extroverted, and that's a great platform for you to kind of be in the moment on stage. And I think, you know, people, as you said, I enjoy the process, but I enjoy being on the stage just a bit more, just because you get to be in front of people, you get to serve them coffee, and it's kind of like a very surreal feeling where everything just kind of slows down, but that's the kind of person I am. And I know a lot of other people who are not really, they get stage fright, or they're not too comfortable being on stage. That could be a different experience for them as well. But for me, competing is what I look forward to. I love doing it. I love preparing for it. Yeah, and it's kind of like you become addicted to it, and especially when you win, because that's definitely an extra.
Yeah, and how important is to be supported by sponsor or coffee roasters that want to work with you, collaborators, etc. Because obviously, it's especially the barista comp. It's there's also a sort of financial element to it.
Of course, yeah. So on the financial side, absolutely. Barista Championship is not it's not a cheap endeavor. It's not a low finance endeavor, but you can get away with it. If, you know, you don't have to have a sponsor or anything. Agnieszka, I got the world champion 2 years ago. She's completely independent, and she reached those heights pretty much by herself. And so it's just proof that you can get there without the help. But any help that you can get, absolutely. If you can get a great support network, coaches and people who's done it before, you know, if you have a place where you can get like the sponsor machine, the sponsor grinders, that definitely helps, especially in your technique, because it's very specific to that machine. And if you can just shave a couple of seconds, just being just a bit more efficient, a bit better, a bit tighter, it will definitely help. But that's less of a rule than an exception, I guess. You know, as I said before, Agnieszka, she won the championship just being independent. And but again, it's not a cheap, you know, endeavor buying green coffee, getting that roaster. So if you do have those people on your back, you know, appreciate them and obviously do it. All you can do as a competitor is do the best that you can.
Thanks, man, and appreciate the answer and the input. And sort of just to sort of give context, because I think we skipped this detail earlier on. I think we were talking about the passion, follow your passion, follow your path. In terms of career, what are you currently doing? What's your position? What's the company you're working for? And what's your day-to-day does it look like?
So I am currently the wholesale manager and trainer for a local roasting company called Micrology Coffee Roasters. And to put it simply, my job is simply I sit in cafes and drink coffee and tell them whether it's good or not. So it's a pretty good job. I'm not going to complain. But moreover, is just making sure that our wholesale customers are taken care of. I'll come in every couple of weeks, just do their numbers, your TDS, their extraction yield, water quality, and all that kind of stuff, just to make sure that they don't have to worry too much about it. Because what we find is it's much easier if there's someone that's responsible for that instead of them scrambling around trying to figure it out themselves. It's much easier than that we come in and we just, you know, have a chat about it and have experienced baristas or not experienced baristas, and kind of like level up from there. Yeah, so it's a great job. I mean, what more do you want, man? Like I wake up, it's Monday, Friday, 9 till 5, drive off, get a cup of coffee and enjoy my day, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason for the question is because I knew the answer, and the answer is heavily linked with the fact that I think that once you find coffee is what you want to do, there is at least 100 combination to it. You know, you can compete, you can become a photographer, blogger, you can work for a coffee roaster, you can roast if you're more, or you can be extroverted, but you know, if you're super introverted, like you can, you know, stay in front of a roaster all day. If you're more extroverted, you can become a trainer, account manager, or you can just, you know, become a cafe owner, or, you know, like there's so many different options. And I think it's good to sort of allow people to see that in real life, how you are a coffee professional. And obviously you're a trainer now. So it's good. And sort of reconnected with the Amina's first question, being a barista is not a stroll in the park, you know, mentally, physically. And, you know, you, from my understanding, you got a young family. How do you manage the balance between work and family?
Yeah, so this is what I really advocate for in terms of being a barista or being a competitor in the coffee industry is you need to find that time to take care of yourself. You know, you have to exercise regularly. I try to exercise regularly, eat as healthy as I can, because, you know, again, as you said, being a barista is not a walk in the park. It's not easy at all. Early mornings, especially in Australia, you know, wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's hard enough as it is. But being, you know, lively and just being that person in the morning that people can come to and they with a smile on your face at 6 o'clock, sometimes it's harder than it seems, right? And I advocate for, you have to be able to get that time for yourself, you know, time with your family, time for yourself, and time at work quite distinctly. So you're able to just take care of that part of it. So I have my family time, I have my own little exercise time and, you know, relaxing time, and I also have my work time, which I focus on, especially being a barista, you know, early mornings and you finish quite late, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock or whatever. Take that extra hour or so, just kind of regroup yourself. You know, I like to meditate, I like to exercise, and doing all that really helps you to kind of hone in on it, especially in competition seasons as well. I hear a lot of stories about competitors just going really, really hard, going balls to the walls, practicing non-stop, day in, day out. And I did that. So I've competed for 3 years in total. The second time I did exactly that. I would go to work 6 o'clock, finish at 2, practice till 10, 11 o'clock non-stop, 5, 6 days out of the week. And when I did that, I won my first Western Region championship. I just remembered, this is gonna sound really weird, but once I won that, I cried in the bathroom. And it's just because all of this stress and this emotions just coming flooding out. I just didn't think that that's how you're supposed to feel when you win something, right? I just didn't feel right in terms of that. So the year after, I try to change this habit that I always go balls to the wall. I read a book called Deep Work, and where you just spend 2 hours, turn off your phone, turn everything, practice, don't do anything else, and then don't think about it. So those 2 hours are your focus time, where you just practice what you need to practice and have a schedule for it. And outside of that, you need to give yourself time to exercise, you know, spend time with your family and all that stuff, because at the end of the day, coffee in general is supposed to be fun. And if you don't find fun and joy out of competing, then what are you doing? I didn't quit my office work to be stressed out even more, you know, and I just find that that's a much more sustainable way of competing and sustainable way of living in general, really. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing that. I think it reminded me a little bit about The Last Dance, when Michael Jordan, the year that he lost his father, at the end of it, when they won the finals, he just started crying.
Yeah.
Which is good. Which is sort of, it's good, but it's bad. like it's good because it's bad in the sense of it can become quite unhealthy if you just don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we tend to be overly hard on ourselves. So sometimes we feel guilty. We feel like, oh, I procrastinated, I wasted time. But the way usually I phrase it around it as well, have you done 1 push-up? Yes, I have. Well, that's okay, because at the end of the year, it's 365 push-ups.
Definitely.
And you haven't done at the end of the year. But try to make 150 push-ups in one sitting. You're not going to be able to do push-ups for the whole week afterwards, because you're going to So I think there's a fine line. At the same time, look, I'm reading a book called Outliers. I'm not a big reader, but I'm reading, and there's a conversation around, there's a direct connection between how many hours you practice, and they say that to master something, you need to do it for 10,000 hours.
Rule. I love that book.
Yep. And the second part, which is the more psychological and analytical, is also related to what year, what day, what month, and what environment you're born in. Like, there's so much, you know, there, literally describing how, you know, it's generational. It's actually more beneficial if you're born in a time in history where there's less people born brought to life in a crisis moment, because then your competition is lower. And anyway, it gets quite in depth, and I feel that we could go in hard for at least hours on this topic. But so obviously there's all elements to attach, but I think not burning out is the main message here.
Yeah, and like it's interesting you said that. I just feel that I was born early January, so it's kind of like I feel like I do have like the extra few months of my life where like everyone is reaching that point. I guess like in terms of age, and I don't think that's a really good metric to think about it, but it's just that extra few months where, you know, if you're being productive, then hey, you gotta do well. Um,
It's sorry for Karen. It's funny that you mentioned you're born in January because that's how a book starts. They basically analyze, and it's actually very well written. It's not. It sounds very technical, but I'm just cutting it down to the chase.
Yep.
They've done a study on hockey players in Canada. Hockey obviously is massive, and they've pulled out when we're the top players of the high school ranking, and basically the top players were all born in the first months of the year because, and then they correlated why, because in order to enroll to hockey, like the season starts the first or second week of January. So the people who can get in earlier, they're getting a lot much more hours than others. Anyway, very, very interesting around the fact
That
that,
is very interesting.
but that's for Canada. Then, you know, in Europe, maybe the season starts in September. So it's anyway, anyway, I lost a bit of track.
That's very cool.
Ziggy,
I mean,
this
like,
is,
man, I love talking about sports, man. Are you an NBA fan?
I used to follow NBA when Steve Nash was a Phoenix Suns.
Wow,
Just
long time ago.
yeah, I was obsessed with Steve Nash, such
Of course,
a cool player. But for me, football, I mean, soccer
soccer
is
is
my
being
bread and butter.
absolutely.
That I'm gonna wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning Sunday. So, and I think,
Oh,
well, I think you know what, having a side passion, it's always good. Like professionally speaking, it's okay. I think we feel guilty about following football and quote unquote wasting hours on watching
yeah,
highlights and whatnot. But anyway, are you a fan of NBA? Obviously.
I am. Yeah, I'm a big fan of NBA. Yeah, just finals just finished, and and Lakers won as they should because they got the two best players in the world. Um, But yeah, I always think of my competition journey. I always parallel it with basketball and kind of like the story. As you said, Michael Jordan was crying out his father died. It's just all those emotions. And you're right. I felt that as well. I mean, not as dramatic as his father passing away or anything. It's just those emotional feelings that you have inside you kind of just get outburst once you reach what you set your goal to be. And kind of like looking at it in a way that it is still a competition, even though it's not a team competition. It's your own. How do you conduct yourself in terms of your practice, in terms of your discipline, which is very important to stick to the schedule, and you know, um, and just paralleling yourself to kind of like the stories that you hear about the NBA players really helps me with preparing for competitions as well.
That makes a whole bunch of sense, and I just appreciate you sharing that. I think it's super relevant for people who could listen to this in the podcast, and we just hit the halfway mark, and I think this is going to be the perfect question because I've asked this question as a ritual question, the out of the box question I ask everyone on the show. If you could, Ziggy, who would you like to have dinner with? And given the fact that you're a big NBA player, NBA fan, I'm really keen to hear who would you like to go have dinner with?
Uh, I would love to go to dinner with. Very good question. I've never really thought about this. Um,
Good.
LeBron James comes to mind. I think it's his what he's doing on and off the court is very important for what's going on in 2020, and just kind of understanding how he works and the work ethic that he has. It's very it's very I'm very interested in how he conduct himself. He's one of the legends, right? I think he's equivalent to like a Messi in football term. It's like it's been there for so long, and in general, athletes just they die, they kind of like dip after they hit their 30s or mid 30s, and the guy is 37 and is still the best player in the world. And how do you be like that, and how do you remain on top like that without burning out and just fizzling into the air because it's incredible what he's doing, incredible what Messi is doing, and it's something that I would like to just like pick his brain and learn a bit more about that for sure. Yeah, but in terms of coffee, I really would like to have dinner with James Hoffman. I think
Fair.
he is fantastic. I'm a big fan of his YouTube channel and the way he elaborate and the way he talks about coffee is fantastic. And I just really would like to know a bit more about him and how he approached coffee and competition as well.
Yeah, I've met him once and here in Melbourne, and I just love his take on him being a YouTuber. He was like to me, it's like, I just don't get it. It's like everybody could do it, and yet I'm sort of like, he didn't say I'm the only one, but he was saying how he's so grateful about it. And yeah, very, very interesting. We had a whole conversation around that. Going back on the age factor, how much do you think that we're conditioned by the number in general in life, but even when it comes to sport? Because I've recently seen a post on a story from Jared Truby, who was sharing another post saying how, nowadays, you hear the journalists saying, oh, he's 32, he's so old. And I'm thinking, not really. I think 30s, 40s is super young. I think we're so conditioned when it comes to the number, and I think biologically speaking, we all evolve and develop at different ages. Some people, I got still pimples, so I'm still a teenager in my head, I'm saying that I'm 30, so I'm thinking, hey, I'm breaking out at 30, fuck it, I'm still a teenager. But if instead I have to listen to the conditioning around me, it's like, hey, you're 30, you should be, I don't get any of this, by the way, but, house, kids, family, marriage, there's so much around it, and as well as career. But I don't think there is, let's bring it back to coffee, I don't think there is a too late or too soon or too early, a right or wrong time to start in coffee. Obviously, you're going to have certain limits, but I remember a good friend of mine, and he started a coffee shop with a coffee roaster in his 50s, all the way in Netherlands. Fuck, nothing wrong with that, and now we have in the chap Bianca, who started into coffee at the age of 15, 16, that's super amazing. So how much do you think that we're conditioned? Because we were talking about LeBron James, but I'm thinking 37, he's a baby.
It's a beast. I don't think age should be, especially in coffee anyway, I don't think age should be a factor in anything, really. As I said, hospitality is probably one of the only ones that still values hard work and meritocracy. If you put in the work, you'll go to places, for sure, especially in the coffee side of things. And Sasa Sestic, he was competing for a decade or more before he even got to that point. He became a world champion, right? And he was, I think, in his late 30s when he finally won the world championship 5 years ago. And so that's if you talk about competing, it's just proof of there is no such thing as you're too old, or as Amina has said, has done, is she's 15 and she's very passionate and she wants to get into that career in coffee. There isn't a limit on what you can do. And your mate, incredible, in his 50s, opening his first coffee shop. Knowing all the stuff that's happening, it's just incredible, and I truly believe that there isn't an age limit on what you need to do or what you want to do in coffee, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think just touching base on that, I think going back on burning out, I think that the number is relevant in certain dimensions, in certain elements. I get it. I'm not naive, if you want to have kids, there's a certain limit that apply. But I think going back on the sportsman, if they're really not taking care of their mind and body and they keep pushing too hard, of course, at the age of 30, they're going to feel like their body's like an old man. And I think because it's such a conditioning of like, oh no, look, your golden years are going to be when you're 20 to 26, and then it's downhill. But then we look at Messi, we look at Ronaldo and LeBron James, and I think the technology and the science and the medicine got them to a space where, hang on a minute, if I do this and that, I'm actually still feeling good. Anyway, I think it's very interesting. But speaking of James Hoffmann, good friend Andre,
Hey, Andre.
super incredible guy. Just say I just spent 2 days with him in Italy. I'm assuming with Victoria Arduino on the launch of the Eagle One.
Yeah.
He was very humble and extremely kind. Super James. So yeah, thanks,
Super James,
Andre.
isn't he? Fantastic, fantastic. I would love to sit down with him one day. That'll be a dream come true.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking about James Hoffmann, and
Yeah, who doesn't?
we'll get him here, I'm sure.
Yes, I'll be there watching.
Okay, good. I'll take note of that. I want to see you here when he's here. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you recently became a parent yourself.
Yep.
How did that change, and how do you manage this? You know, because obviously that's a whole new full-time commitment. I don't want to call it job. Obviously, it's a big commitment.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. It's been challenging, especially having a child during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I do not suggest people do that. It's not very it's not very good. But it changes you in the way that you started to before it's all about you and you, and what goals one want to achieve, and what I want to get in my life, kind of thing. And it changes you in a way that it's you and your family now. And everything that you do, every decision that you made has to have them in that equation. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to this expo wherever for like 2 weeks and then leave, and you have to think about what's going to happen on that side. So it does make it somewhat a bit more challenging, a little bit more complicated, but the reward of it is absolutely worth it. I love being a father, and it's the most rewarding thing when you wake up in the morning and see your daughter smiling at you, and it's beautiful. But in terms of going to with work, and I was lucky enough to be in this position where I was quite flexible, and I was allowed to kind of like navigate my way. Sorry, I'm just in the headquarter right now. Navigate my way to fatherhood alongside with work as well. And I'm very aware that a lot of hospitality workers do not have that privilege to do so. But again, I'm very grateful for the company Micrology to kind of be like, we get it. It's a pandemic, and you have a child, and we will support you as much as I can, as we can. And so far, it's been really great, man. Yeah.
I gotta ask one question. This is super selfish. It's a question I ask every new father.
Yeah.
I love this question. I don't know why. I'm not a father yet, but the one thing that I keep thinking is, how slow do you drive from the hospital to back home for that very first drive?
Very slow. Very. I'm not sure if you ever held a newborn baby before. They're about this big.
My brother, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah. So but no baby chairs are made for newborns. So they put it in there, and they kind of just like a little bean in there. You're locking it in, and they just move around. They don't have a neck control and moving around, and you drive very slow. And the hospital that we stayed at had a lot of speed bumps, and that made me very, very anxious. And yeah, so very slow. Take your time, just people just honk at you. It's like, who cares? Just as long as I get home safe.
Sorry, yeah, it's a question I love to ask, and it's because it's something that I've actually thought about it. All right, let's take it back home, back into coffee. I think we covered a lot of things. We got plenty of time, but not too much in the sense of I'm going to ask you some big questions.
Sure.
So then we can talk about different other topics towards the end. Ultimately, Ziggy, what's your coffee mission and what's next for you on your planet?
I think about this a lot. My mission is, to put it simply, I want to serve and help people through coffee. And that's what I want to do. And I think the most important part is for my customers or customers of coffee drinkers to understand how difficult it is to grow coffee. And it's insane. But we just, we just sip it and we drink it like every morning, like it's this thing that will never go away. And the way I'm looking at it is, obviously the goal is world championship. That'll be fantastic. That'll be really, really good to become a world champion. But with that, I really would like to educate future coffee professionals with the right knowledge and the right attitude going into the profession, like people like Amina, and to going into the industry, not thinking that this is just a job that, gets me money, a part-time job, but it's something you can hone and become really, really good at. In order for them to understand the knowledge behind the coffee supply chain so they can transfer it to the customers. Because as baristas, we are the front line with the conduit between the customer and the coffee supply chain. We're only responsible for 10 minutes of that supposedly 1,000 hours growing coffee throughout. And you need to condense that knowledge into this really, really short amount of time to make people understand what the value of coffee is. And I think a really, really efficient way to do it is we're able to teach and educate young professionals in the future generations of coffee makers to really get it and really value coffee like it's supposed to be. So that's pretty much my mission, and to help people kind of get over that hump. I see it. I'm not sure what's happening in Melbourne, but there's a lot of enthusiastic young people who really want to get into coffee, but the barrier of entry is extremely high. The old adage, you need to experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience, and they're in that conundrum. And I really would like to do something, I haven't quite figured it out yet, to get them the right knowledge, the right attitude, so they can actually be in that position where they can make coffee and learn a bit more and be that ambassador for the coffee industry.
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. Well, first, thank you for sharing that. It was beautiful and very insightful. I think in terms of that barrier, there are so many variables because if you're first geographical, but not just Perth, Melbourne, also Melbourne CBD versus Geelong or rural areas, regional, touristy area, and then again that equation doesn't quite work out because that takes into consideration COVID. So, for instance, a regional area where there's a lot of tourists, that's usually good if you're willing to go there because they're going to take you under the wing, and usually there's a higher rate of demand for workers. Now with COVID, those touristy areas are either shut or very low. So I think there's a lot of tasks. I think the answer, sadly or not sadly, will have to be virtual in the sense of whether it's, and I'm not even joking here, whether it's going to be a 3D virtual reality experience where literally you can literally bang out like a 3-hour shift as a barista. So then when you do go for a trial, you actually remember the movements. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10, 15 years we're going to see actual, before you even go for the job interview, they might turn around and say, well, plug in your chip, your phone, whatever device is going to be, and show us what you do in a virtual reality setting. And a lot of people think, oh yeah, fuck yeah, right. I'm like, well, look at us. We're talking live, a 3 hour difference or whatever it is. You're all the way in Perth. I can see you. You can see me, and there's people communicating with us. Just go back 10 years ago. Forget about it. Like, and people don't know that Australia network is not that fast. I mean, this could be so much cleaner if we were both in Estonia, right? It's incredible. So I think it's not actually going to be unreal. So I think virtual is where we're going to see a lot of development.
So I know, very funny. My partner's from Estonia, and she has not stopped whinging about how slow the internet is in Australia, because I went there a couple of years ago for Christmas, and wow, everything is just a snap, and it's fantastic. It's so good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. And I think like with the technology being better and better, augmented reality and your virtual realities, I think it will be a much more virtual, digital kind of like environment where we can train people, and we can get, obviously with a trial, as you said before, and it will become a much digital kind of way of looking at things. And myself, I think for me, I'm kind of old school, where I long for the interaction, face-to-face interaction with people, and being able to smile and like having that coffee and stuff like that. But with the whole pandemic thing, I think that pathway is definitely something that we need to seriously consider in order for us to reach whatever, in terms of coffee future, in terms of education or training or whatever. It's something that we need to seriously look at. But again, I've been doing this for a long time, and I just remember how nice it is to kind of like, handing a cup of coffee to your customer.
Absolutely. Look, I'm a big sucker for people. Like, I started a podcast mostly because I was stuck in lockdown. I was like, fuck, man, I need talk. I'm going crazy here. So I get it. I think it's actually very interesting, this whole virtual reality thing, because it got me in my brain thinking. I mean, I don't think it's far at all. I mean, we went from tutorial books, hey, read this, to, hey, watch these videos. And those videos just increase their quality exponentially. And all of a sudden, it's like, even you and I are professional, where people ask us, how do I do a chula? Be like, man, just YouTube it. Just watch hours of YouTube and you'll get it.
Yep.
And I think that eventually there might be certain professions where they're going to be some literally cheap or free game version. Or imagine training, right, during a pandemic, where you are limited for yourself, and you can train 100 people, 100 customers, 100 wholesale customers, all on the same platform, because you can actually see what they're doing in this augmented virtual reality. I mean, yeah, that's it's scary, but look, it's like with every piece of technology, people whinge about it. Oh, kids on their phones, da. I'm thinking, okay, how many people who complain are going to go back to handwritten letters sent with a pigeon? Zero.
Yeah.
They're still sending emails. What about the people who were stuck 7 hours next to the radio back in the days where there's no television? Same. It's just changed the form, the color. What you can do with the device, it's just device time, whether it's radio, TV, or in this case, a smartphone. Anyway, we got 5 minutes left, and we start talking about virtual reality training. I think that was pretty cool, actually. Ziggy, thank you so much. It was super, super nice, super flowy to talk to you. I think that you and I could really very easily sit down at a cafe and keep this chat for another couple of hours. I can feel it. I can vibe it. But thanks for giving us an hour of your time. Again, newly father, working in coffee, and I really appreciate it. Lots of gratitude, and maybe we could do, talking about teaching. You know what? Pick a topic that you want to teach people, and we're gonna do it live.
That's fantastic. I'll definitely.
If it's filter, I can do it too, and I'll follow your steps. If it's espresso, You gotta send me an espresso machine, or Andre can hook me up
Yeah, I just sent you a
Andre,
link
you
from
can hook
myself,
me
man.
up with
That
an Ego
works.
Prima or something. That I don't
Yeah,
have.
mate. Look, I'm. Thank you so much for having me, man. Like, I mean, I've seen what the other podcasters are doing, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. And people, your guests are just, world renowned, world class, and I'm just very happy to be, just be amongst it, and I really do appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean, like, in the future, I really am working hard to kind of like trying to achieve that goal to better education for coffee, and just making people understand in a way that it's not too difficult for them to understand. It's, if you can teach it very simply, why not? And it's something that's the difficult part, right? Making this very complex thing like the coffee supply chain into this something that's easily digestible and people can just appreciate and understand even more. And that's, I think, the part that we need to move forward. And might get them a VR goggles and get them to augmented reality, and that'd be pretty fantastic. I would love
I'm
that.
telling you, I can't even believe that it took me 91 episodes to say this. Oh, fuck. You helped me to get there because like, how can we teach better? I'm like, fuck, virtual reality. Anyway, I don't even have a PlayStation. I don't even have a TV. But yeah, I mean, think about virtual airplane simulation, flight simulator, like the video
Yeah.
games where you literally play for 7 hours if you got to fly for 7 hours. I mean, yeah, interesting. Anyway, again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon in
Oh yeah,
Perth.
my friend.
A real pleasure, and we can do this a second edition, or maybe do a little tutorial or something live with everyone joining in, or maybe a private Zoom or Google Meetup or something.
Absolutely.
You know what? You throw me the idea, we'll make it happen, man.
Definitely, my man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been
Thank
absolutely
you.
fantastic. Thanks, guys.
My pleasure, brother. My
See you
pleasure.
later, brother.
Ciao.
Ciao. See ya.
There you have it, guys.
Another beautiful person, coffee human that we just had a chance and honor to chat with. Again, Ziggy from WA, Western Australia. Episode 91. It's been a ride. It just feels fresh every time. It doesn't feel like episode 91. It feels like episode number 1, 2, maybe, because the first one I didn't know what I was doing. And I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for everyone dropping comments. Thank you so much for everyone being here. This wouldn't be possible without you. So I really appreciate each and one of you. I know it's an hour, and I know that you all have commitments, and yet a whole bunch of you, hundreds and hundreds of you, tune in every single time for 10 minutes, for 5, for 40, for 45, for a full hour. And if you listen to this as a podcast and you made it to the end, thank you. I really appreciate it. We're trying to grow the podcast side of things because not everyone can join us live, and recording this is just like there forever for many years ahead to come. So thank you all. Before I give a shout out for the people who are still in the room, big reminder, 6 days left for the craziest coffee giveaway that we've ever done. I don't think that's never been done before. Head over to our page. To celebrate the 90th episode, we collaborated with 90 Plus Coffee, and they are so generous to give away to 3 winners. They are incredibly good tasting, high quality coffee from Panama. So just check out that post. If you haven't entered the giveaway, you gotta do it. You can't miss it. If you listen to the podcast, it's probably too late by the time I upload it, but that's okay. And final step, big shout out to you, Andre, Bianca, Tanti, Yuki, Andre, Leo, Maureen, and Leo. You're still in the house. Thank you for sticking around for the full hour. I appreciate you, and I hope you're well. Hope you're safe. Take good care of you, your health, your mind, your heart, your body, and your family, and the people who love you. And just keep it coming, keep it real, and we'll see you Friday. One more episode. We're approaching episode number 100. You don't know what's gonna come for episode 100, or maybe you do. Watch out. Take it easy. Ciao.